Channel 2S is brought to you by New Type HQ. Get your kits and supplies at the link in the description below. Hello and welcome to Channel 2S everyone. I'm your host Second Soundwave, and tonight it's time for another episode of Gunpla News. Now today is going to be a very P-Bandai heavy episode, and I've definitely got some thoughts on that. But before we get too deep into that, let's touch up real quick on a couple of slightly older announcements. These were announced either around the time of the HGAC Strike Freedom or right after. And since neither of these stories were too interesting on their own, I decided to hang on to them until I could do a slightly larger episode of Gunpla News. You guys know how it is. So here is the high-grade Heavyarms Kai, the most inevitable premium Bandai release ever conceived. If you know Gundam Wing, if you saw how the last few Gundam Wing kits went, you knew this was coming. The Heavyarms Kai is just such an easy retool of the Heavy Arms, hardly anything has to be changed. All they've really done is add a second Gatling gun to the arm, they've changed the front skirt armor a little bit, I think they've maybe changed the side skirt armor a little bit, and the backpack has some additional thrusters. Now I believe the Heavyarms Kai design was supposed to have thrusters on the legs as well, however those don't seem to be present on this model. And if I remember correctly, they weren't on the Sandrock Kai either, so maybe that's just a detail that either I'm misremembering or Bandai decided to omit. Either way, this is a pretty basic model. Now I did really enjoy my original high-grade Heavy Arms, and I still think it's a really good kit, but there's just not enough different going on here to really justify buying this on top of it. And if you don't have the original Heavy Arms already and you're thinking that maybe with this kit you'll get both options because of leftover parts in the runners, well, based off of how the parts were gated off on the runners for the original Heavy Arms, that's probably not going to happen. The way the runners were laid out for that kit, pretty much all the parts that are exclusive to the original Heavy Arms design can be very easily gated off of the runners, and they're probably not going to be included with this. So if for some reason you haven't picked up a high-grade Heavy Arms already and the doubled up Gatling guns are enough to push you over the edge, this could still be a kit for you. If you want to know when this kit's going up for pre-order in the US P-Bandai shop, definitely subscribe to this channel, because whenever I see Bandai US announce when the pre-orders are going live in the US shop, I always try to make a community post as soon as I can so my subscribers can actually see and, you know, have a chance of pre-ordering it. Getting pre-orders on the US P-Bandai shop right now is an absolute nightmare. Most of anything that's like slightly desirable sells out so freaking fast. I'm talking like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and they're basically gone. So if you want to know when pre-orders are going up ahead of time so you actually have a chance, definitely subscribe down below. So the next premium Bandai kit we're looking at is the Fawn Farsia. Now this is a design from Gundam Age, and Gundam Age, interestingly, has actually gotten quite a few new kits recently. Earlier this month we kind of got a reissue / very slight upgrade for the old magazine sets for making the Age 2 Artemis and the Age 1 Razor, I think. Wait, that's what they were called, right? I think so. They did them as kind of a bundle together with the base models, and they gave you just a crap ton of stickers to try to make up for the fact that they were originally magazine kits and thus are molded in a single color. So, you know, that was kind of weird. Now we're getting the Fawn Farsia. I'm starting to see a pattern here. I'm thinking that Bandai might finally maybe be looking at Gundam Age and going, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a market here. You know, we could release a recolor here, a recolor there. You know, maybe drum up some interest. I don't believe there's a lot of things from Gundam Age that's really left for them to do, since the original high-grade line pretty comprehensively covered the entire show. But hey, I've never seen the show myself, so maybe there's some weird recolor that appeared in one episode that I'm missing. Now with this being a variant of the Farsia, it does come with some pretty cool accessories. Of course, you get your little flower funnels and the magical girl staff, but you also get a pretty nice little display base that comes with some clear rods to display the funnels in action. It's not very common to actually get a way to display the funnels with a high grade, so it's pretty nice they included that here. Now I am kind of familiar with this variant of the Farsia from Gundam Extreme Versus, at least I think that's what this is. Or maybe that's a third version of the Farsia, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's this one. And if I remember correctly, there was like this kind of platform thing that the Farsia stood on when it flew around, so maybe that's just something they decided not to include here. Maybe that was an original Farsia thing and I'm misremembering it. Either way, would have been kind of cool to include, but with this being such an obscure release, I could see them maybe wanting to cut costs on it. Alright, so before we move on to the Phantom Gundam, there is something important I want to talk to you guys about. So the last episode of Gunpla News we did was the most popular video I've had in a year. And it was also the first video I've ever had demonetized and blocked worldwide. Now, thankfully, it wasn't permanent, it was only down for about a day, but it was enough to remind me of just how freaking fragile a YouTube channel can be. So I finally decided to do something that I probably should have done a while ago, and I have set up a Patreon. Outside of a brief mention in my Discord, which you may or may not find linked in the description if I remember to put it there, this is the first time I am announcing this publicly. Obviously, you don't have to pay anything if you can't or you don't want to, but if you want to support the channel, it really does help a lot. And, you know, if people contribute enough, in the future it will allow me to make some really cool content content that I normally wouldn't be able to do. So the link's down in the description, you can check it out when you're done with the video. Again, it's totally optional, but I would really appreciate it if you gave it a look. Alright guys, this is the announcement that actually made me want to record an episode of Gunpla News tonight, the high-grade 1144th HGUC Phantom Gundam. This is a kit that a lot of people have been wanting for a really long time. The Phantom Gundam is fairly popular, it's gotten a few figures, it's gotten some Gashapon toys before, but because it's one of the few Gundams from Crossbone that isn't just a direct palette swap of the original Crossbone Gundam, Bandai's always been kind of leery of making it as an actual model. But it looks like 2022 is the year that Bandai finally decides to take the plunge and actually make this as a fully realized, brand new mold, high-grade kit. Now, I say brand new mold, but this may very well reuse some parts from the Crossbone. Looking at the way the joints are working here, I could see them maybe reusing like the gray frame runner from the Crossbone maybe. For the most part though, this is pretty much a brand new design. Now this is going to be a premium Bandai model, as all of us would expect, and that does mean that the color separation on the final model may not be quite as good as it looks here. However, the sculpting underneath does look fantastic, so even if it needs a little bit of paint, the end result should be pretty amazing. And while we're talking about amazing, just look at these effect parts. The flame effects are a really signature part of the Phantom Gundam's design, and the sculpting on these looks absolutely incredible. Just the sheer amount of effect parts you get with this model is absolutely insane. Everything from the head, the shoulders, the chest, the wings, a different part of the shoulders, the side skirt armor in a couple different places, the knees, the front skirts, everything has flames coming out of it. This is one of those modes that I would never really expect a high grade to fully replicate, and instead kind of cheat by maybe having like some opening panels or some swap out parts to make it look like, you know, he's ejecting the flames, but they're not actually visibly there. But they went all out. They gave you every single effect part you could possibly want, and that is really, really impressive. From behind, you can see just how extensive some of these effect parts are. They really went the extra mile with this kit. Even the swords have effect parts, guys. This is going to be an absolute centerpiece model for sure. This is one of those kits where if you fully deploy all the weapons and accessories on it and you put it on a shelf, this is going to be a model that people look at. Even if they're not a Gundam fan, anyone who sees your collection is going to immediately notice this kit and think that it looks freaking awesome. As you can see here, absolutely massive spread of accessories. He's got these little daggers. He's got, I was going to say this is the X-Zero shotgun, but it does look like a slightly different design. It's got the same blade effect, but it's not a double-barreled shotgun like the X-Zero had. And you'll notice this funky little module over here, and if you've been building high grade for a while, you'll know exactly what that means. Boom, transformation, or parts formation, because, you know, it's a high grade. Now, like with some other smaller mobile suits like the Victory Gundam, this kit would have been totally fine and understandable if they didn't try to do the transformation at all and they just 100% focused on making the mobile suit mode look amazing. But I guess they decided all those effect parts weren't enough and that they really just had to go an extra mile beyond the extra mile that they already went and give him the transformation. I'm not a huge fan of this mode. I would never display the kit like this. It does look pretty cool with the effect parts though, but it's just not for me. And really, in general, I think I'm probably not going to end up picking this kit up. According to the official announcement, this kit is going to be 2,700 yen on the Japanese P-Bandai shop, which I think is a pretty reasonable price for this kit. The problem with that though is that that is the Japanese premium Bandai shop, and the US P-Bandai shop pretty consistently tends to price their kits quite a bit more. On the US shop, I would expect this model to be somewhere in the $30 to $35 range, which isn't too bad on its own, except you then have to factor in taxes, and then you have to factor in the $10 shipping. So at the end of the day, you're basically looking at a $45 high grade. Now, I have paid that much before on the P-Bandai web shop for a high grade. I've even paid way more than that for a high grade on the P-Bandai web shop. And honestly, the more I see these really cool, unique designs come out as overpriced P-Bandai models, really the less it makes me want to build them. One of my favorite things when I got into the hobby was the way that you could just buy whatever you wanted whenever you wanted it. I absolutely hate the idea of sitting on a web page hitting F5 over and over again waiting for a kit to come in stock just so I have the privilege of overpaying for it. I'm not about that at all, and I'm really disappointed with the direction that Bandai's been taking as of late. It really does seem like 80 to 90% of Bandai's budgets for both the HGUC and Master Grade line gets redirected into P-Bandai kits nowadays. There's just so many P-Bandai releases for every retail kit that comes out. And yes, we do sometimes get amazing models like the HGAC Strike Freedom, but that really isn't an excuse for them to skimp out on the other grades. After all, we've gotten entire perfect grades in past years that still had a full roster of high grade and master grade releases despite an incredibly complicated kit coming out that year as well. Now, I'm sure we all know why Bandai started doing this. You know, back in 2020, obviously every company had to do what they had to do to stay afloat, but I'm kinda concerned that now that Bandai's gotten a taste of the extra revenue they can make by dumping everything on the P-Bandai web shop, that they might not go back. If that does end up being the future of Gunpla, I'm gonna find myself checking out sooner rather than later. I really don't mind splurging every once in a while for a kit that I really want, but if that's what the vast majority of Gunpla is gonna be from now on, I'm gonna have to tap out. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on the P-Bandai shop and how Bandai's been handling the US, you know? Have you noticed the increase in prices? Does it bother you that you have to pay $10 shipping on each individual item because they only release a few kits at a time, forcing you to impulse buy whichever ones you want as soon as you see them instead of letting them build up into a nice large order so you can ship them all at once like you used to be able to do? Or are you totally fine with the direction they're going as long as they keep releasing kits you like? Leave it down in the comments below, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and as always, I'm Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.